Sometimes even good people can make a mistake. And when it happens, it's one of the most intense and emotional experiences of your life. It could be a DUI, or maybe you were in the wrong place with the wrong people at the wrong time. Or perhaps you just did something stupid at the spur of the moment without even thinking, and now you're in trouble with the law. Well, you need experienced legal help right away so you don't become a victim of the criminal justice system. Even good people can make a mistake, and if you, a friend, or a loved one has been accused of a crime, don't make another mistake by hiring the wrong attorney for the kind of help you need. You need to visit toddjohnslaw.com. That's toddjohnslaw.com, and then call Attorney Todd Johns today. Attorney Todd Johns has decades of experience helping good people like you who have made mistakes or bad decisions and will stand by you every step of the way. toddjohnslaw.com.
All right, hello and welcome to That's Enough Out of You. I am your host, Mr. Bill Rader, and joining me, my co-host, Sean Kane. Sean, what's going on? How you doing this week?
Billy, doing good, buddy. Real excited for this episode. It's our, season 3 finale.
Yeah.
Then we're going to take a week off and a week hiatus, and then we'll be back after that. But this is just a tremendous episode with returning guest author and fellow podcaster Matt Crumpton, and it's on Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very, very interesting stuff. And if you haven't, I think we mentioned this several times on this episode, but if you haven't heard Matt's podcast, Solving JFK, it's a great listen.
Yeah.
He's terrific with it. He does a great job kind of, looking at it from both sides. Like he'll look at it from the lone gunman side, but he'll also look at it from, the more realistic side.
Right. And then, we talk a lot in this episode, we do a really deep dive on Lyndon Johnson and his career and all the shenanigans he was involved in.
Yeah.
And, we played a tape, Billy, of, Billy Celestis and Cliff Carter, 2 associates of Lyndon Johnson, talking about the fact that Johnson was involved in murders, including the Kennedy assassination.
Right.
We talk about, is the tape, first of all, is it a genuine conversation? And is the information that they're saying accurate? And we go into that, and then we also go into some other things like the Mac Wallace alleged fingerprint in the Texas School Book Depository, and we cover a lot of ground in this episode, Bill. But the thing, you mentioned Matt's podcast. What he does great, Bill, is he presents the evidence, and then he says, well, how does everything fit with what we already know? And that's what I think is so important, Bill, is, we already know some things. We know for a fact that Angleton was controlling Oswald's 201 file. We know that there was regime changes all across the world going on that fit the Kennedy assassination going on at JM Wade. So Matt says, how does the new information fit into that? Like Mac Wallace quarterbacking this thing doesn't fit. The mob quarterbacking it doesn't fit. So I think it's important to understand, when you get new information to determine if it's accurate, how does it fit with what we already know? And I think Matt brought up a great point. We also cover, Bill, some of the alleged Kennedy womanizing that I've been talking about. And I think we have to be careful about, because so much of it is easily debunked. And I think, it doesn't really lead you anywhere. So we cover that. We just cover a lot of ground in this episode, Bill. It's tremendous. So let's not waste any more time. Let's let the people hear it.
All right, let's get right to it. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to announce to everybody that the That's Enough Out of You podcast is proud that we're going to sponsor the JFK Lancers November in Dallas conference. It's going to be November 21st through November 23rd at the Fairmont in Dallas, Texas. A lot of great speakers, researchers on the JFK assassination. And if you use our podcast promo, the That's Enough Out of You podcast promo code JFK10, you get 10% off the ticket. That's promo code JFK10. And you can find the tickets at the website assassinationconference.com, and a lot of great speakers. Paul Abbott is going to be there. A lot that we had on our show: Paul Abbott, Paul Blow, Johnny Kearns, Walter Herbst, Jeff Meek, Linda Giovanni Zambonini, who's coming up on our show. So, and a lot of other great researchers, and it's about the JFK assassination. So, again, we're proud to promote this event. It's November 21st through November 23rd at the Fairmont in Dallas, Texas. The website is assassinationconference.com. And the That's Enough Out of You promo code is JFK10, and you get 10% off the ticket. So it's definitely going to be worth it. And I hope people are going to come out and enjoy the event. Unfortunately, Bill and I can't make it, but I know it's going to be a great event because the speakers are tremendous. So any other information that you want, you can message me and I could get that for you, or I could put you in contact with somebody who can answer the questions for you. Again, thank you, everybody.
All right. So tonight, very special returning guest, Matt Crumpton, is back with us on That's Enough Out of You. Matt, how's it going tonight?
Good. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you.
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, it's been a minute. We've been yeah, I guess I've the whole Congress thing happened since the last time I talked to you guys.
Yeah. We had Andrew on and Mark, and then we had Jim Paul on talk about that, but we haven't had you on yet, buddy, since then.
Yeah, man. It's it's been there's been a lot of stuff going on. See, everybody's busy, I get it, but the excuse I give myself is that I'm committed to linearly putting out these episodes, and so sometimes I just get like tunnel vision because each one, including all the stuff from it, the video, the music, each episode, the research, each episode is about 20 hours.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's why I'm pretty crappy about responding to texts and tweets and being a human. But every now and then I pop my head up and say hello, and I try to smile and be nice when I do. So good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you, buddy. And Matt, your series on the LBJ is fantastic, and that's what I want to talk about tonight. And it's going to be a challenge because it's like 6-7 parts, and we want to try to cram it into an hour here, maybe a little longer.
Yeah.
But let's start with LBJ. I want to focus more on your later episodes and get into like Billy Celestis and Mac Wallace, and we're going to talk about the fingerprint and the tape recording stuff. But let's start with LBJ, and let's just talk about a little bit about his career and talk about this just unbelievable corruption that was around him.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably the first thing to point out when you talk LBJ is that he said from when he was a child in elementary school that he was going to be president of the United States one day. So, this is someone who was dialed in. I like to say the president that most reminds me of Frank Underwood from House of Cards of anybody is LBJ. Now it's not based on LBJ. It's based on a British politician. It's a British show, but man, I'll tell you what, it's really, there's a lot of parallels. So he starts out, he's a teacher, and then he ends up he knows he wants to get involved in politics. He starts to like volunteer for some campaigns, and he finagles a situation where he can work on the campaign of this guy, Kleberg, and I forget if it was Bob or Dick, which one it was, but
Dick, it was Dick Kleberg, I think.
Dick, yeah. One of them is the main operator of the King Ranch, and the other one is the brother that's a politician. So he worked for the politician brother, and that guy's just like kind of checked out playing golf all the time. And LBJ, as like a 5-year-old, got to run his office. He was so he learned everything about Congress as basically a kid almost, in his young 20s, early 20s. And then when he was, I believe, 29, he had an opportunity to run. He was elected for Congress. And what's crazy about that is after he was elected himself, he basically buddied up with FDR because that was the way the wind was blowing, and he could tell that. He was very shrewd. I mean, I've presented a picture of LBJ that's not super flattering from like a moral standpoint, but you got to give it to the guy. I mean,
you know what he's doing.
There's not a lot of people that call their shot as a kid and go, I'm going to be president one day. I mean, you have to be a psychopath indeed to do that. So he
rig an election in high school or something.
No, I think he was elected student body president. I'm pretty sure at like Texas State or whatever.
Well, didn't he rig that election? No, didn't he rig that?
Right. He rigged that one too. That's right.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He rigged that one too. Yeah, for sure. You're right. So anyway, but one of the things, kind of an early show of character for LBJ, is he's got to pick between FDR and the FDR candidate and his the guy that gave him his start, Kleberg. He's got to pick between, the FDR candidate and Kleberg, and he throws his old mentor, his old boss under the bus so that he can stay on Team FDR. So so anyway, Johnson did really just buddy up with FDR, and he was tight with him too. Like he was tight with him as like he was an influential congressman because he had the president's ear. And this is like peak FDR, late 30s, early 40s. So LBJ, just kind of moving on. He he ended up going to war. World War II happened when he's in Congress, and he's in his mid 30s then. And he signs up to be in the Navy, and he's a lieutenant colonel, I believe. I forget exactly what he was, but the point of it is, he had to salute officers that were higher in rank than he was, and he hated that. And he also didn't like that they didn't know he was a politician, and they just thought he was a regular person, and he had to act like a regular person. That's what he wrote in his memoirs, that it was distasteful to have to act like a regular person. And that's truly so then he gets he goes over to Australia, or maybe it's New Zealand. I forget which one. I think it's Australia actually. And he has an incident where the plane that he was in and got out of came under fire, but he wasn't even there, and it's like he's not even involved. It's like a Brian Williams in Iraq type situation. Um, and he gets a Silver Star from no, not a Silver Star, it might have been, I should look up what it exactly is. It's a decoration that he gets. It's in my episode. And he's like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's don't worry about it. It's nothing. And then he's wearing it on the floor of the of the house, of course, as soon as he gets back, and he starts calling himself Raider Johnson. Oh, don't worry about me. I'm just old Raider Johnson. So I mean, he is kind of a character, and
What an ego.
he'd be the type of guy that you'd see and you go, oh my gosh, this guy, he's just the worst. Except for he kept making it and he kept advancing, and so you're like, okay, now I have to respect this psychopath. Ugh. So it's probably a lot of people in politics like that today, I bet.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so when we get into the corruption is when we start to look at Bobby Baker. So really, Johnson had two famous acolytes who got involved with some corruption that reflected negatively on him: Bobby Baker and Billy Sol Estes. And while Bobby Baker was a drop in the bucket financially compared to Billy Sol Estes, I mean, Bobby Baker, we're talking about, he had a net worth of $2 million. Billy Sol Estes had a net worth of $400 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So the big difference. But what the stuff Bobby Baker was doing was in Washington and was high profile. So basically, the first thing was just Bobby Baker was assigned to be the assistant to the secretary to the Senate Majority Leader when Johnson was the Majority Leader. And he had known Baker for a while, because Baker actually started as a Senate aide when he was like 16. So Johnson's like, I want you because you know where all the bodies are buried. That's what he told him. So anyway, Baker uses this power of being the Senate Majority Secretary. He has power to determine, administrative things related to Senate office buildings and other government office buildings. And he uses that to put his own vending machines in the building. And you may go, who cares, vending machines? What difference does it make? Well, this is before there were cafeterias everywhere and businesses, and it's like peak manufacturing around the clock era. So the vending machine business was just crushing back then. So anyway, Baker goes into this vending machine business with this guy. This is crazy. I covered all LBJ's connections in this same chapter, but the same episode. But Bobby Baker goes into business. Servview Corporation is the name of the vending company, with this guy Fred Black, and Fred Black is a lobbyist for military industrial complex, basically for defense industry contractors, one and the same. Okay.
Right.
And his best friend or one of his best friends, rather, is Johnny Rosselli.
Yeah. You can't even make this up.
And this guy, Fred Black Jr., lives next door to Bobby Baker, who lives next door to LBJ, who lives next door to J. Edgar Hoover, who lives next door to Irving Davidson, who's the lobbyist for the Central Intelligence Agency, and Carlos Marcello and Santo Trafficante. Are we having a good time? We're having a good time.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
So,
those
yeah.
are definitely names that keep coming up for sure.
Album's coming up.
Yeah. So anyway, Bobby Baker, he starts the quorum. He tries to open a hotel, the Carousel. That becomes a whole thing, and then he that's a whole separate side story. but anyway, LBJ was there, and so was Ellen Romesh at the night it opened. Big thing with him was the Quorum Club and Ellen Romesh, who was basically this East German who, people allege that she was a spy. We don't really know if she was a spy. That's still kind of an open question. And anyway, Bobby Baker supplied her to JFK. Basically, she's one of these like naked pool party chicks that would come over and have the friends with benefit scenarios with the president. And basically they were trying to bring down LBJ for the Quorum Club. I'm sorry, for his associations with Bobby Baker. And he brought in Hoover to go, hey, because actually, so Robert Kennedy's trying to bring down LBJ. And so he goes after Bobby Baker and the Quorum Club. And in doing that, the Ellen Romesh angle comes up. So LBJ goes, oh, if he's going to do that, then Edgar, I need you to let the Senate know about Ellen Romesh. And she's, she may be an East German spy. At the same time that this is in the news, which is late October 1963, the Profumo affair is wrapping up in England. And the secretary of the prime minister ended up resigning in England, in the UK, because the minister of defense had an affair with this 19-year-old woman who was also having an affair with the Soviet naval attaché. So anyway, it was a big thing, and it was in the news. It was a big deal. And so that was, that may have been an issue for JFK down the road.
Let me ask you a question, though,
Pulled
Matt.
the investigation is the point. RFK pulled the investigation and got rid of her. Sorry, I'm getting down the rabbit hole.
No, it's all right. But let me ask you a question, because we've been doing a really deep dive on a lot of this JFK womanizing, alleged womanizing. We even had Jim D'Eugenio on, and we had Don McGovern on, who discredited a lot of it. And a lot of it stems from this guy, David Heyman. I don't know if you're familiar with David Heyman, but he made up a lot of phony interviews he had with people that were in JFK and RFK and Marilyn Monroe's circle, and he made sure that they were dead, made sure he got their obituaries, and then made up these phony interviews. So a lot of this stuff is alleged to come from that. So what do we know about Romesh? Like, how do we know, is the source of the alleged affair with Romesh and JFK just from Bobby Baker?
It is, there are FBI reports that looked into it.
Well, that's another thing, though.
Exactly.
Because what I found is a lot of the stuff in the Hoover has in his files, like the one report showing our RFK was in Marilyn Monroe's neighborhood and was pulled over by a police car, and that can't be true, because we know we had Don McGovern on, and RFK was confirmed. It's provable that he was 350 miles away in Gilroy, California.
Yeah.
So that was a phony report that Hoover put, and Hoover put a lot of this stuff into the Kennedy files and stuff. But again, when you're putting all this smoke and all this stuff, eventually it's going to cause problems for JFK and RFK, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
So that's the point. Like, I don't know, so I'm just pointing that out.
I think I would say two things on that. Three things. I have not looked at that in depth. So to the extent D'Eugenio has, I would probably defer to him. Usually I
don't know if we covered Romesh, because we can't obviously cover every alleged affair, because JFK, they tie him to every single beautiful woman ever.
I think that
but he covered a lot of it.
The thing with Romesh is the extent to which Bobby Kennedy fought it and tried to cover it up makes me think there was something there, but it might have just been
Would have been
optics.
the Soviet angle too, though. Just putting that out there that
Of
it's
course.
the
Yeah,
spy
yeah.
and stuff, that really just that puts a cloud of suspicion that
For
you know
sure.
what I'm saying? So that's what I'm
Yeah, it might have just been optics, and also, but also I think it is true that and you know, maybe it's not. I mean, I need to go look at this, but I think it is true that JFK was getting shot up with all kinds of drugs for his you know, his back and
well,
etc.
he had health issues, yeah. He had
Right.
health
But
issues. So
I'm pretty sure that some of those included like meth and like testosterone. So I say that to say it wouldn't be surprising if he had a higher than normal level of testosterone. That's all. If they're giving him, I'm saying it wouldn't be. Maybe the answer is the truth is somewhere in the middle.
maybe, but I just
Uh-huh.
know a lot of we covered with Jim and Don McGovern, like so many are just they turn out to be phony, just a lot of nonsense and disinformation and character assassination, really.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it in depth enough to be able to make a call on it. It's been ancillary to what I've been doing, so I would
But it's
say,
going to cause an issue, though. Just the fact
yeah,
that if he was putting these reports together, whether they're true or not, it's going to cause an issue. So that's the
yeah,
point.
yeah, Ellen Romesh in particular, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially being a spy, if she really was a spy.
it's quite possible that you know the womanizing angle was overblown, but yet I would say it would be shocking to me if he didn't have at least 4 or 5 affairs.
Well,
Maybe
like
not.
I said, I can't look at every single one because if
Yeah.
you believe what they put out there, I mean, he wouldn't have any time to do anything because they
Right.
Well, you got well,
every
like
single woman.
I think a lot of it too is you could go check the White House visitor logs. Like I know Mary Meyer visited like a lot of
Well,
times.
sure, but there could be other explanations for that too, though. That's what I mean. Like, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because we talked to Don McGovern, we had Jim on,
Yeah.
and there's other explanations and stuff. And I just went over a lot of stuff on the Mary Meyer
Yeah.
put on our Patreon, but we're getting off track here. It's just the
Well,
point.
hang on 1 second.
Go
Rashawn,
ahead.
I just want to confirm something that Matt said earlier. So LBJ did receive the Silver Star, and he also received the American Campaign Medal and the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal. So there you go. You were right.
Oh, Raider Johnson. But no, look, hey, just yeah, and so I will stand by the things that I can put a footnote behind, and I can't put a footnote behind anything in that topic. So I'll defer to others who have looked at it more in depth.
The point is that we understand that it caused this problem here, whether it was true or not. It caused an issue here, and RFK is involved. And
Right.
RFK is going after. The point is RFK is going after Bobby Baker.
Right. Right.
And not Bobby Baker, but Lyndon Johnson in his connection to Bobby Baker.
Yeah. Hey, we also one thing this I do think is important to cover is just the bribery side of things. And separate from Billy Celestis, which we'll get to in just a second. But we had these oil companies doing just straight up cash bribes.
Right.
And we have this guy, Claude Wild Jr., who testified to the Securities and Exchange Commission about that. And then we have a guy named John Halfin, who was Carlos Marcello's one of his money men, and he gave Johnson $50,000 a year in cash for 10 years. So if you want the Marcello tie, let me just get to the point. Let me just kind of say the main thing here at the outset. If you want to say, did LBJ do it? Did he have motive a zillion %? Like the most
Sure.
hilarious
A lot of
over
people
the
have
top
motive.
motive you'll ever see in your entire life.
Right.
Did he have like the means and opportunity? I mean, he's got relationships with all these people going way back. He's got deep relation. He's on the intelligence committee in the Senate. So and in Congress he was on the Armed Services Committee. So he knows all these people deeply. J. Edgar Hoover's one of his closest friends,
And
So,
Baker's also tied to Meyer Lansky with casino contracts, right?
Ed Levinson, he's tied to Meyer Lansky Associates.
Okay.
So yeah, you could say that for sure. But so anyway, there's mobs. It's all mobbed up. The LBJ.
And also, there's a connection with the Brown brothers with LBJ going way back too, and the Brown brothers have heavy
Right.
CIA connections.
Well, yeah. So he was really they were the first financial backers of LBJ. And you know, the first big thing he did for them was a dam. He got him the really big money dam, and then he got him a bunch of military bases to be constructed during World War II, and ships. They had never built a ship before, and then they got a contract to build all these ships for World War II. So yeah, certainly the Brown brothers, which went on to become you know, Halliburton effectively, or
Yeah.
related, not Halliburton exactly, but got merged into.
Brown and Root, yeah.
Yeah. But so okay, let's move on to Billy Sol Estes. All right, Billy Sol Estes. All right,
What a
man,
beauty this guy is.
man. All right, so basically, let me just say, first of all, he's not just like a con man. This guy's a legit entrepreneur and farmer. Okay.
Yeah.
And which I didn't know what to know about Billy Sol. I just knew like what I'd seen on The Men Who Killed Kennedy and like, you know, whatever. Um, so he's really a smart guy. Here's what's funny, and this maybe I shouldn't say this as a practicing business attorney, but as I'm reading about what Billy Sol Estes did, and to an extent Bobby Baker, until we get up to the fertilizer tanks, even the cotton allotments, okay? But until we get up to the fertilizer tanks, I'm on team Billy Sol Estes. I'm like, you are the man. Like, dude, I love these deals. Like he inspired me. I want to go out and do some deals. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go look at biz buy sell. Like, what can I put together? Let's make a deal. But anyway, so he was really smart. He graduated high school with $700,000 cash. Okay, that's how much money he had when he graduated high school.
Wow.
He started farming when he asked for a sheep when he was 8, and he ended up growing that into like a herd of sheep, and then bought a bunch of land with it as a, you know, kid. He won 4-H club farmer of the year in 1948 or something like that. Or no. I forget what it was, in the 40s when FDR was president, because FDR gave him the award. It's amazing. The FDR
Wow.
gave Billy Sol Estes the award. So okay. So here's where it gets. So Billy Sol Estes meets Cliff Carter, and they end up going into business together. Specifically, their first little deal is buying decommissioned pre-manufactured homes that had been used at army bases that they were just going to sell. And Billy Sol Estes was like, hey, I can get the money, and I'll give you 10%, Cliff Carter, if you can tell me when these things are going to go on sale and get me the inside information. So he did just that, and they made a bunch of money on the deal. They did what they had planned on doing, and they continued doing stuff like that for a while. And long story, so then Estes, he gets into do he goes west. He goes through Pecos, Texas. He randomly stops there, and he has this epiphany of like, hey, this would be a great place for farming if they just had irrigation, but nobody can afford the irrigation pumps for electricity. But everybody, there's so much oil here, and oil is so cheap here. What if we did a gas-powered electric, or gas-powered irrigation pumps? So Billy Sol Estes called Cliff Carter, got a loan for it right away. LBJ helped him get the loan, and they started this company building gas irrigation pumps, and then bought up a bunch of land also in West Texas, and then sold these pumps to everybody. And that was the beginning of him really growing his empire, Billy Sol Estes. And again, so far so good, no problems, nothing illegal so far. All right, then we get into the cotton allotment stuff, and this is the part where, like, I'm kind of with him on the cotton allotment. All right, because it's just, if the law doesn't say you can't do a thing, then you can do it, right? If it doesn't say, I mean, so it's creative certainly, but I've seen much crazier stuff be upheld. Okay, that's all I'll say. So but anyway, what's happening is, there are cotton allotments on land because they don't want there to be too much cotton. They want to control the price of cotton. Okay. They don't want to flood the market with it. So to help farmers. And so they say, hey, there's only so much cotton that can be grown. If you only grow up to your amount and you don't grow too much, then there will always be a market for it, and we'll buy the cotton from you and put it in silos. Because there was so much eminent domain going on, farmers were losing their land to eminent domain. And a lot of the farmers who lost land, and why was there so much eminent domain? Because it's the 40s and 50s. It's the 50s, actually. And Eisenhower Highway. We're building highways across America. And by the way, it's not just the Eisenhower Highway. There's highways and county roads and everything going up everywhere. Okay. So a lot of eminent domain is happening then, and it's interrupting a lot of farmers' fields who have cotton allotments. So what happens is if you lose your field to eminent domain, then you can go buy a new piece of property and get cotton allotment on that property because you lost it on your other one. Okay. So what Billy Estes was trying to do is get people to move the people who had free cotton allotments. He went to them all over the country and said, hey, once you move your cotton allotment to this piece of land over here, now the land is 1 foot wide by 30,000 feet long. Okay. So good luck farming it. But I have all the other 1 feet portions, by the way. So don't worry about me. I'm fine. Yeah, long story, it's a kind of a complicated finance thing, but the farmers got a little bit of money for agreeing to it. They didn't have to show up or do anything. And Billy Estes got all this cotton, made all this land be now land where you could grow cotton. So this one guy, Henry Marshall, he's the guy whose job it is. He's the goalie. He's the chief government regulator. And it's his job to make sure nobody gets away with any funny business.
Right.
And so he said, hey, while this doesn't violate the letter of the law, which is my point, it does violate the spirit of the law, right? This is not what, clearly he's doing this on purpose just to take these people's cotton allotment, and that's not a transferable asset that we intended to allow them to transfer to him. Okay. So Henry Marshall goes over and beyond and really tries to shut them down.
Right.
Estes' lawyer comes to visit him and says, hey, can we work something out? And he says, no. And then LBJ, so Estes goes to LBJ, hey, can you help me? LBJ is able to get Orville Freeman, who's the head of the USDA. That's Henry Marshall's boss's boss, right?
Right.
He gets Orville Freeman to change the rule so that the local the local jurisdiction had control over it, and they know they could control the local jurisdiction. Okay. Well, Henry Marshall finds out about this rule change, and even though he's told to stop, and even though it's not enforceable anymore, he goes around to every local jurisdiction to educate them on why they should continue to deny it. So this isn't just some guy doing his job. This is a guy doing his job with a passion.
Yes.
Who thinks that he's really going. I mean, so like, you don't get. I mean, this is why he got killed, in my view, because he was like a dog with a bone. He wouldn't let go. He would not let go. So they offered him a job in DC, and he said no. And I'm not saying it was right to kill him. But I'm just saying, like, he really, really was a fly in the ointment. Like he was kind of he was an issue for him. So this is where we get into the Henry Marshall murder. So this whole thing. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, let's talk about the murder.
Yeah.
We will be right back. DK's Corner, now located at 201 Cherry Street in Jessup, Pennsylvania, is serving up the area's best tasting food at respectable prices. Known for our great cheesesteaks, DK's also has delicious breakfast sandwiches, specialty coffees, and catering 7 days a week. You'll love the wraps, soups, and pizza too. We're now open Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit DK's Corner on Facebook to see our daily specials, and make sure to follow and like us while you're there. We offer local delivery to homes and businesses, takeout, or come and dine in our new restaurant in Jessup. Call or text DK's Corner at 570-209-0278 or hit us up on DoorDash. And we thank DK's Corner for sponsoring That's Enough Out of You. We will be right back.
Hey, Sean, I want to make sure that everybody knows about our Patreon. I know we mention it every once in a while on the show, but really important that people check out our Patreon. If you go to Patreon and search for That's Enough Out of You, or just click on the link in the description, you'll find we do an extra episode every week called the Speakeasy, and it's really usually just Sean and I kind of talking about the day's events, current events, and things like that. But a lot of exciting things. I mean, I know, Sean, you're constantly putting articles up there on our Patreon.
Yeah, and sometimes, Bill, we do bring on special guests. We had Dave Whelan on, we had Scranton Dave, and every now and then we bring Patreon members on. We've had different members, Scott Alfieri, Michael Pilch, Dan Hankey was on. So, there's an opportunity there if you want to come on the show with us. So there's a lot of things we're doing. Like you mentioned, Bill, the articles. I put articles up on a free site, but I also put articles on Patreon that's not available on the free site. We have a lot of times I put up future intel about guests that we have coming up and stuff that we have coming up on the podcast. And, we created a great community there, Bill. There's a lot of chat goes on there. There's a community chat and a lot of the comments back and forth. Just the Patreon members always have great insight. So it's a community, Bill, and it's an opportunity for people to join for a really good price, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat it. You can certainly become a free member if you want to. There's also tiered levels with subscription amounts, and just for $1 that gets you everything. I mean, the $1 gets you everything, including our weekly show. There's other tiers. I think, Sean, what is there? A $3 tier?
$3, there's a $5, there's a $10. I mean, and there's a $50 if people could afford to give $50.
Yeah, I mean, totally up to you. Once you join, you can make that decision, and certainly, there's no commitment. I mean, you could join for a month or 2 months or whatever you want, and then you can switch your subscription around. Totally up to you. I mean, that's people love Patreon for that reason. It really is. It makes it easy. It's kind of however you want to do it, however you want to join, and we certainly appreciate anybody who joins our Patreon and supports the show, because we definitely Sean, we're not getting rich off of this podcast, that's for sure, but we definitely appreciate any support that we get from our listeners.
And we also have our merchandise store. If people want to check out, we have the shirt that I have on now. We have mugs up there. We have cups, hats, anything you can do to help the podcast grow. We also have a bookshop up there, Bill, where all the authors that we have on our podcast, we have their books up, and it supports local bookstores, Bill. The money goes to local bookstores, a little bit to us, and then to the publisher and to the author. So it's a real good opportunity instead of buying Amazon and making
supporting billionaires.
Right, sure. There's an opportunity. And as far as Patreon, one last thing, Bill, if you want to join as a free member, we do put some stuff up there for the free members, and then if you like it and you want to upgrade, you can do that.
Absolutely. So definitely check out our Patreon. Like I said, there's a link in the description to our Patreon, or you can just go to Patreon and search for That's Enough Out of You and look for our logo, and just fill in the information and you can join. All right. That's it, Sean. We appreciate all of our Patreon members, and we hope that you guys will consider checking it out if you haven't joined. Thank you.
So this cotton allotment conversation and all that stuff happens in the they tell Billy Celestis he's going to lose his cotton allotments and he's going to have to pay this big penalty. That's in the fall of 1960. Then in 61, Lyndon Johnson's in office now. He's vice president. Okay. So it's now June 3rd, I think, of 1961. That's when Henry Marshall's murdered. So he goes out to his ranch, and again, now this is within months of when he's going around on his tour telling every single county official to not allow the cotton allotments, even though the law allows it. Okay. So anyway, he's killed, and it turns out he has five gunshots with a bolt action rifle. And he also had 30% carbon monoxide in his lungs, and he also had a big bump on his head. So, of course, the official
it was originally ruled a suicide.
Ruled a suicide. Yeah, by the sheriff, and then there's a a grand jury to try to decide what happened because this judge, guy named Clint Peoples, was a Texas Ranger that
Right, people.
judge to look at it, and basically the jury determined that it was a suicide, but it turns out that 4 of the people on the jury were related to the sheriff, and the jury foreman was the sheriff's son-in-law, and one of the sheriff's cousins worked for Lyndon Johnson in the executive office building.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You can't even make this stuff up. It's amazing.
So okay. And then all right, so the next parts of that are a gas station attendant named Nolan Griffin says that a man came in on the day of the murder the morning of the murder, asking for directions to the Marshall Ranch. And then the next day, that same guy came back and said, you gave me the wrong Marshall place, but I got my hunting license, whatever that means. Well, Nolan Griffin gave the Texas Rangers a, identification, and they made a drawing of this gentleman that came in, and he looks sort of like Mac Wallace. I mean, with the right glasses on, I think it's in the realm for sure. But that's pretty much all the evidence that we have on before we bring in Billy Sol Estes. That's all the evidence that we have for Mac Wallace. Not a ton of evidence, really.
Let's talk about Mac Wallace a little bit.
Yes, okay.
Because he's alleged to be the hitman for LBJ.
Let's talk. And look, man, I have unpopular opinions on some of my Mac Wallace stuff, but I'm just following so I'm happy to explain everything.
Right.
But Mac Wallace, another guy who was president of the University of Texas student body, just like John Connolly, who, by the way, just quick sidebar, probably one of the biggest revelation as I've studied LBJ is the extent to which John Connolly was his not best friend, but mentor. He was John Connolly's mentor, close mentor for years and years and years, like almost like a son or a brother, that type level. But anyway, Mac Wallace. So Wallace, we know that Wallace did work for Johnson. He worked on his campaign. I believe either the 1948 campaign is the one he worked on.
Right.
And then when he got elected to Senate, Mac Wallace got a job working for the USDA as an economist, and that was a job that Cliff Carter got for Mac Wallace. So we know that there was sort of payback in that way, and that happens all the time, by the way. How many campaign staffers work for administrations that win? Why people volunteer. So nothing really wrong with that, but Wallace goes to DC. While he's in DC, I'll say also, one of the things he did directly for Johnson through Cliff Carter is he would help small businesses get loans in Texas that otherwise couldn't get the loans. And then he would get them a loan, which, by the way, the business had to pay back. And then he would take 10% of each loan and pay it back to Johnson. What I like about Johnson is that his number was always 10%. There's one time when he asked for 20 when he put money in, but I like that he kept it consistent. Like, he didn't do evaluation. He wasn't like, well, let's see what would be appropriate here. He's like 10. So okay. So Mac Wallace, so he's in DC. He then has an affair with Josepha Johnson. Now, here's where there's a split in the official story and the lore. Okay. So, or not the official story, the documented evidence. Okay. So the documented evidence is that Mac Wallace did know Josepha Johnson, and he did have an affair with Josepha Johnson. That's Lyndon Johnson's sister. Okay.
That's sure.
Then when I say documented, there are witnesses like Joan Mellon talked to. Philip Nelson has some great witnesses in his book, but I don't think it can even be disputed that they had this relationship. The thing that people always say is, well, LBJ gave Mac Wallace the job of watching Josepha Johnson because she was crazy and she had loose lips. And because of that, that's how their relationship started. But there's no site for that. And whenever I see someone say that, I'm looking for, okay, and what Johnson person told you that? Where did we get this?
Sure.
So I just so for me, I'm just kind of like, who knows? But so here's where it gets fun. Mac Wallace's wife, so he's married, he's cheating on his wife with Josepha Johnson. And Wallace's wife turns out is cheating on him as well with this guy named John Kenzer. Okay. But John Kenzer isn't just sleeping with Mac Wallace's wife, he's also sleeping with Josepha Johnson, his mistress. And he doesn't even know Mac Wallace. So Wallace, if comes down to Austin and he kills John Kenzer at the pitch and putt for sure.
Yeah.
Indisputable.
No doubt about that.
And so there's a debate of, well, did he kill him? Some people say he killed John Kenzer because John Kenzer knew things that Josepha had told him and he was gonna, go do something. I mean, it is true that Kenzer asked Josepha for a loan, for LBJ to get her a loan, and then she told him he won't listen to me and he wouldn't help me even if I asked. So, okay, that makes sense. I'm just saying the idea that like he had to silence Josepha or had to silence John Kenzer, to me, it's more maybe that's true also, right? I don't know. But I think definitely it's a compelling reason why you would do a murder if someone slept with your wife and your mistress.
Sure.
Different people would be more angry about different parts of that, right? Depending on how much they like.
And he kills this guy in broad daylight in front of all these witnesses, and then he ends up doing no time.
The first thing he says when the police show up is, I have to get back to Washington because I work for Johnson. It's the first thing he says.
Wow.
So yes, and so he ends up serving. So here's the question we're asking, because it's a disputed issue. After Mac Wallace, after the Kenzer murder, to what extent does Mac Wallace have any relationship whatsoever with LBJ? Okay, because people argue that there's not much at all, right? Even so Joan Mellon probably lays out the case the best, that there's not that much of a relationship, but there was some, right? So it's not that clear. Anyway, after the Kenzer murder, Wallace gets a job working he leaves the USDA. And where do you go? Let me just finish this point. Kenzer murder happens. So he's got to defend himself. Goes to trial. You want to talk LBJ connections. His first lawyer is a guy named Polk Shelton, who was the lawyer for the 1948 ballot litigation. He was Lyndon Johnson's lawyer for that. His next lawyer, I'm sorry, the first I didn't tell you the first lawyer, the one who bailed him out of jail, Ed Clark, Johnson's personal attorney. Okay, the guy who Barr McClellan says is the mastermind of the whole thing. So that's Ed Clark, Johnson's personal attorney. Can't get closer than him. Polk Shelton is the first trial attorney, and then they bring in Johnson's go-to criminal attorney who works at Ed Clark's firm, John Kofer. So without a doubt, LBJ is involved in Mac Wallace's defense. And the reason I say that is because he's literally using all of LBJ's lawyers.
Sure.
And Polk Shelton's not at the same firm. You could be like, oh, he happened to pick that firm and it's the same lawyers. Okay, but you got to explain Polk Shelton then. Okay,
right.
A totally different geographic place. Makes no sense.
Sure.
Now, people say Mac Wallace had to pay his own litigation fees. True. You think Lyndon Johnson's going to... LBJ's shaking down small business owners for 10% of a loan they got to pay back. He doesn't care that he's like, yeah, you pay your own damn way, son. Can't you see that? So that's not surprising to me. All right. So anyway, Mac Wallace, people say, here's a disputed issue, which I didn't cover in the podcast because there's no evidence for it, in my view. Supposedly Johnson got a hotel across the street and he had people running to him to tell him like the results, and he was sitting there waiting on it. There's one person who said that, and they said they heard someone tell them. So, and also it doesn't matter to the story whether he was there or not. But why would he be there? Does that make any sense?
Why would he be there? Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
But they were clearly Johnson lawyers, without a doubt. Okay.
Sure.
So then you do what anybody. So he gets found guilty of murder, and of course he serves 0 days in prison, 5 years suspended sentence. As long as he doesn't get any felonies for 5 years, he serves no time.
Unbelievable.
And he does what any convicted murderer would do. He goes and gets a job in the military-industrial complex. So they do a review of his they do a background check before he gets the job at TEMCO, Texas Engineering Manufacturing Corporation. They built airplanes. He gets a job there, and the murder comes up, and they also interviewed his ex-wife, who's like, oh yeah, by the way, he raped our daughter. And he still gets the clearance. So
Unbelievable.
Clint Peoples happens to be, by the way, Clint Peoples is involved in the John Kenzer murder. And then he sees the Henry Marshall murder years later. And then after the John Kenzer murder, just going back in time, right after the Kenzer murder, Clint Peoples is who I believe it's the Office of Naval Intelligence who's doing the background check. That's who they interview about him to ask about the murder case, because Clint Peoples was involved in it. Okay. And he asked the guy how he finds out that Mac Wallace did pass the background check. He's like, how could that be possible? And the guy goes, well, we got pressure from above. And he's like, who could possibly give that much pressure to justify this guy? He killed somebody. And then they flat out told Clint Peoples, the vice president.
Wow.
So LBJ did, in fact, get him the job, and he pushed him through. Okay, so the fingerprints of LBJ are on Mac Wallace. Until then, that's the last definitive Mac Wallace fingerprint, LBJ fingerprint on Mac Wallace, is when he gets the job at TEMCO. And by the way, who owns TEMCO?
Deej Bird.
Ding!
Unbelievable. Deej Bird owns the Texas School Book Depository. And he's
one of the founders of the Civil Air Patrol.
Yeah.
And he committed insider trading the day, weeks before the assassination, buying, he owned like 30,000 shares of LTV before. He bought 130,000 additional shares like a week before the assassination.
He's always been super suspicious.
Yeah. Oh, he went on a fake safari.
Yeah.
He said he went on safari, but like he didn't actually go on safari. He made it up.
No.
So I got an extra episode that comes out next week on Texas oil, so I'll be covering that. That'll be good.
Okay.
But anyway, so Mac Wallace, TEMCO. So this is where, I think in the lore of the conspiracy community, it's like, and then Mac Wallace just went around killing everybody for LBJ. He did all these things, but what we're doing there is I think we're doing two things. We're looking at the Henry Marshall case, going,
Right.
well, that was definitely a murder. They're lying about that. Somebody killed him. And then we're looking at the list from Billy Sol Estes of all the people Estes said Mac Wallace killed. So those got merged as if they were truth. And all I'm saying is Mac Wallace may have killed Henry Marshall. It's quite possible, but it's not proven, is all I'm saying. There's the only evidence is this drawing of this person and Billy Sol Estes's tape and the words he said, which we'll get to here in a second.
To talk about Mac Wallace, he does have an alibi. It's his family, but they said he was in California when Henry Marshall was killed. But there's also, wasn't there a data security application that he filled out?
Yes. Security application he filled out on the day before Wallace was killed, and which was in California. And also his brother and his nephew came to visit, and they went to the beach one day and went to Disneyland the next day. So these are things they remember vividly.
Right. So where do you stand on the murder, Matt? Like, where do you stand on Mac Wallace? Because to me, I'm on, like, I could go either way. Like, I see evidence for and I see evidence against that.
Well, let me tell you, let's get to Billy Sol Estes, because my Mac Wallace theory ties into the Billy Sol Estes thing overall. And I'm open-minded to it too. And if people disagree, I'm still your friend. I'm not trying to fight. We can disagree. You can tell me, oh, why do you think this? Interesting. That's a good point. We can have a dialogue. Everything's okay.
This is where there's a big split with the JFK community, whether LBJ was a planner.
Yeah.
Oh, we know he was involved in the cover-up of JFK assassination. We know that, but
let me throw out this notion. It's possible that LBJ was a planner without Mac Wallace having any involvement at all.
Sure.
That's all. So okay. Yeah. So anyway, on Mac Wallace, or on the so let's go to Billy Sol Estes. So there's this whole thing. Did Mac Wallace kill Henry Marshall? We don't know. And bigger question, is Mac Wallace on the 6th floor, or is he involved in the Kennedy assassination?
Right.
So what does Billy Sol Estes say? Well, Estes goes to jail until 1971, for 10 years, 8 years maybe. then he gets out for a little while, then he goes back to jail again for another stint, almost for like the exact same crime. It's so stupid.
And Johnson doesn't help him here.
Right, exactly.
So leaves him bitter.
Right. So he gets out of his second stint in jail in 1984, I believe, maybe late 83. And he had told Clint Peoples that he would tell, a jury what he knew. And in fact, they did. They had a grand jury. And the whole point was the family suing the state to change the cause of death. So that's what that was what the procedural posture of the lawsuit is. And Billy Saul Estes gets on the stand and talks about how Mac Wallace killed Henry Marshall, and that Mac Wallace confessed to him that he did it after the event, and that he was there when LBJ ordered the hit. And LBJ said, you got to do it. You got to kill him. Now, there's a bit of a conflict in his story on LBJ. In his
different stories, yeah.
Yeah, in his book, he says that in January, when they met after the inauguration, they met at LBJ's backyard. By the way, I went to that house and got the Zillow pic at the backyard in my little video. That's literally LBJ's backyard that I
Nice.
but anyway, so he says that in the backyard in January of 61, LBJ says, let's keep trying to give him promoted, and let's see if he'll make the right choice. We're not going to do anything yet. And then he says, this is the book version, that Cliff Carter contacted him and said, hey, Mac Wallace is gonna kill him. We're gonna do it now. And that was like in May, right before it happened. In the grand jury testimony version, he says that Johnson said in January that they're going to kill Mac Wallace, that he gave the order to kill in January, not the order to let him try the promotion. So that's a little, that there's a little confusion on that. But anyway, so Estes then goes on to, so the jury determines that Henry Marshall was murdered, but they don't determine that Mac Wallace killed him. They just determine that he was murdered. But certainly they're relying on Billy Saul Estes to an extent, although this jury, who's not all related to the sheriff like the first one was in 1962, all they really need to hear is 5 shots with a bolt action rifle and carbon monoxide poisoning, and they'll go, okay, well, this guy,
Yeah, not a suicide.
Okay, so Billy Saul Estes, now this is important. Billy Saul Estes says that Mac Wallace is involved in killing President Kennedy. He has a whole list of all these other people that Wallace supposedly killed, including like Harold Orr and some of these folks that were committed suicide by carbon monoxide. Like 3 of them did right around the time of Billy Saul Estes going down. And there were people who were closely tied to Billy Saul Estes.
Right.
And to his corruption. So anyway, somebody killed those people, and I wouldn't be surprised if Billy Saul Estes knew it. Let me just say this too. Henry Marshall's murder, why was he killed? We all have, like if you're absorbing this information, I think a reasonable person would go, well, he was killed because of what he was doing related to Billy Saul Estes' cotton lobbies. He wouldn't stop.
Absolutely.
So the question is just, so someone killed this man on behalf of Billy Saul Estes. So I wouldn't be surprised if Billy Saul Estes knew who killed this man, right? Sure. So I think Billy Saul Estes knows. I do think that, or I think he did know, all right? So he tells everyone it's Mac Wallace, all right? He also says that Mac Wallace was involved in JFK assassination. Where? How? As the shooter on the grassy knoll. The Billy Saul Estes story is that Mac Wallace is the shooter on the grassy knoll. Okay, so moving to the next part of the Mac Wallace evidence, we have the fingerprint, okay? And then there's this whole back and forth, and there's a big dispute. Did Mac Wallace leave his fingerprint on the 6th floor? And we'll come back to that in a little bit. But there's a whole dispute about that. So everyone's going, okay, Mac Wallace was on the 6th floor. We also, as you may recall, have Richard Randolph Carr, who saw the guy with horn-rimmed glasses and the brown sport coat behind the shooter. And we have Carolyn Walther and James Worrell also see a second person in a tan or brown sport coat behind the shooter, with one of them says horn-rimmed glasses as well. So
now let me just add on Carr. Let me just add on Carr that he was consistent with his story, and he was under. I think had like 3-4 attempts on his life.
Yes, that's right.
Carr.
Right. Yeah. Yes. I know
It's crazy stuff.
It's compelling. So, if you study the case, you know that there's a missing piece there. You know that, well, hang on, we have credible witnesses, on-scene witnesses, that they're just telling the truth as they saw it. They saw a second person there. And this seems, and we got Mac Wallace's fingerprint. Well, hey, that does seem like it would match up really well. So putting the fingerprint evidence aside, and I chime in on that, and I spent a lot of time on that. My thing on Mac Wallace is, it doesn't, he can't be at the grassy knoll and on the 6th floor. You got to pick one. Right. And I just think if Billy Sol Estes would have said Mac Wallace was on the 6th floor, this whole Mac Wallace thing would be way more compelling to me.
Sure, I agree. But this is the problem, Matt, when you take a guy like Billy Celestis, who's a pathological liar, a con man, it's hard to, like, these guys that they'll tell one truth and it's hidden by, 4 or 5 lies around it. It's really hard to pin down what they're actually saying.
To answer your question on who I think killed Henry Marshall, I think it's, well, let me just say this. There's the tape. Let's talk about the tape.
Let's talk about the tape.
Okay. All right. So my ruling on the fingerprint was the fingerprint.
Matt, can we play that tape? Or will we be able to play that tape?
You can play it.
Okay, so we're going to add in could we just take it from your video and add it?
Yeah, take it. Absolutely.
We're going to play the tape then, Billy. And this is Billy Celestis and Cliff Carter talking about LBJ ordering murders, including Henry Marshall and also the JFK assassination.
Yes.
Sure good to see you. How's life treating you today? Well, Saul, it's been a pretty touch and go situation. Lyndon and I have had quite a few unpleasant words here lately over the deal that he hired Mac Wallace to assassinate the president. It's been hectic in every way, but we've lived through it this far, and I guess we'll continue to do so. Lyndon should have never issued that order to Mike, but we've had our differences, and I'm a true blue to Lyndon, as I've always been, and tried to carry out every order that he'd ever given me. But this is one I'll probably never be able to forget. And the times that we've had in Texas, and the embarrassment that Lyndon had gotten from Kennedy, I guess there wasn't anything else to do but what he did. Well, Lyndon could have really hit me if he would. Well, Lyndon's the kind of person that doesn't want to help anyone. He's all for Lyndon, and that's the way it's pretty much always been. Well, they had me backed up on that Henry Marshall killing, and they just kind of blackmailed me to keep my mouth shut. And if I hadn't had a bunch of tapes that I played after he got killed, because 17 got killed in this situation very mysteriously. And I've done a lot of time, and I've lost a lot of money, and hurt my family a whole lot. And it's really got me disgusted with Lyndon in one way. In one way, I feel real sorry for him. But I really feel like that in Lyndon's heart, he felt like that he was doing the right thing. He felt like that he was saved as a common man. I feel like that in his heart he wanted to help people that had not. But I don't believe that anything, my church background would have never let me sanction all the killings that he has done. What do you think about it, Cliff? Do you really believe that it could have been handled anyway without killing all these people? You got rid of the candidates, you think he would have won the election against him? Well, I don't really believe so. He tried desperately to do just that, and there didn't seem to be any other way. I know that he regrets a lot of things that he has done, but still, it's been a battle from day one. For a long time friend, and just sorry that I've embarrassed all my friends and put all my friends through this. Oh, you didn't embarrass me. And what I was really afraid of, my brother Bob that got killed. Our plane was down at Bryan the day that Mac Wallace killed Henry Marshall. And I was afraid it's going to tie him into the thing, and we couldn't afford to. In fact, Pam started to write a book. And when she really got scared when she got into the thing, it was just too scary a deal. But anyhow, this too will pass.
The tape, by the way, was released this year. It's released by a guy named Shane Stevens, who's Billy Joel Estes' grandson. It's legitimately his grandson. And he says it had been in the family. His uncle had it. His uncle recently, dementia had gotten worse and sort of turned it over to the younger generation. And so he decided it was time to come forward. Now, it's a little mini tape. And this technology was invented in 1967. And the conversation was said to have been in 1971. We know that there's only a 2.5 month period during which this conversation could have happened in, because that was the only period of time when Billy Joel Estes was out of jail, after he was out of jail for the first time, and before Cliff Carter died. Okay,
Right.
so window in 1971. Shane Stevens, when he brought the tape on, I've watched all the shows he's gone on, and I tried to reach out to him. He didn't get back to me, but he brought the tape on Glenn Beck, and he brought the physical tapes because they wanted to actually show everyone and like play it from the tape, recorder, and they seem to be legit. And the other reason why I think the tapes are legit, the tape is legit rather, is because this particular tape has been in JFK assassination conspiracy lore for a long time.
Yeah.
It's mentioned in Douglas Caddy's 1984 letter to the DOJ. He talks about a conversation with Cliff Carter, where they name 17 deaths that have happened from Mac Wallace. Now, this conversation, Billy Joel Estes says the number 17, but he doesn't go over who they are. But the number's in there, and there's also this guy named Kyle Brown, another guy, Tom Bowden, I believe, who claimed to have heard the tapes, and they're in different books that came out in the 90s and early 2000s, talking about the details of the tape. And in fact, what they say is on the tape is on the tape, right? So,
Right.
so to me, the tape is real, and I would like to see an independent, like, forensic examiner look at it. That would be really, really good. But I
Right.
do think, based on what I know, that the tape is authentic. I tried to listen to other recordings. There's a couple of recordings of Cliff Carter talking to Lyndon Johnson on the phone, but Carter's really quiet in those recordings, and Johnson's real loud. And
Right.
also, the way you sound when you talk to Lyndon Johnson is probably not the way you sound when you talk to a normal person.
Well, we've heard those, Matt. We've heard those tapes of him talking to his tailor, right? Those
Oh yeah,
are amazing. When he's talking about letting his pants in and out, and down where his nuts hang, and all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. He's a gentleman with colorful language. That's for
Right,
sure.
exactly.
So yeah, the tape does seem real. So the question then becomes,
Is the information they're saying?
how do you, like, just because the tape is real, are they saying things that are true, or is it a performance?
Right.
So I think, and just so everybody knows where I landed on the fingerprint, the first guy to look at it, Nathan Darby, says the prints matched. Okay. And he looked at copies of each, like high-res copies of the Warren Commission print 29, the one from the 6th floor, and Mac Wallace's 1951 prints from when he killed John Kenser.
Right.
Then another guy confirmed what Darby said, Hoffmeister. And then once he found out what the fingerprints were about, then he recanted his story. Okay.
Right.
But then Joan Mellon commissions this guy, Bob Garrett, and I hear everybody at home going, "Fed." But
Yeah,
look,
but
Bob Garrett was the chief. Uh, he was the guy in charge of certifying fingerprints. I'm sorry, certifying trainees in
right,
fingerprint examination for the IAA, the International Association of Identification. It's a
right,
private third party that certifies, for latent print training.
right.
It's been around since 1915. So, and not only was this guy higher up, I mean, after COVID, ruling by expertise died with me, so I don't care what your expertise is, you know what I mean? Like, you got to have something else too, especially if there's competing experts. Um, so what this other guy has is he's got more high res scans, so cleaner images, and he's got
Right.
better technology that can see grayscale.
That's the key. Better
And
technology.
he says it's not a match.
It's
So
not
and it's supposed to be double blind. And look, there's counterpoints. Oh, how could it really be double blind? Because he knew he was talking to Joan Mellon. He knows what she does. Okay, I mean, it's a fair point. Um, and how can there's a whole thing of Joan Mellon said in a conference that that she got a print from the FBI. Maybe she did. In the book, it says that she got the print from the National Archives. So, I just know to go what's in the book is all I know. So my thing is, look, somebody else wants to challenge Bob Garrett, some other expert. I'm happy to look at it, but that's where it landed at the end of the
I
road.
agree.
The print's not
I agree.
legit. So the question is, what do we do with the tape? And because the tape is, especially if the tape is real, and that's where where my gut is at on this right now, is that Estes was putting on a performance. Estes knows who killed Henry Marshall.
And Matt, and let's face it,
It wasn't Mac Wallace, is what I think.
No, and I agree with you on that. And he has a reason to lie, to implicate Lyndon Johnson, because he's bitter that Johnson didn't help him
Exactly.
do anything for him when he spent all this time in prison.
Exactly. Now I can't explain.
Why would Cliff Carter lie to him?
I'm with you. I don't know.
But the thing is, maybe Cliff Carter didn't know as much, and he's just going off of what Estes is telling him, and he believes Estes's story is true.
Yeah, but
I don't
Cliff
know,
Carter
or somebody else got to Carter.
Yeah, but Cliff Carter comes in and he goes, "Well, Lyndon shouldn't have ordered that. Lyndon shouldn't have ordered Mac to kill the president." It's like, and also, let me just say this. I'm open to the idea that Mac Wallace could have had some involvement some way as some player, but what we're being asked to believe by Billy Celestis, his story, okay, that this tape is supposed to support, is that Mac Wallace is the catalyst. Mac Wallace went and recruited Jack Ruby, and then Jack Ruby recruited Oswald.
And there's no evidence for that.
And also, what about all this pre-work that's been done by the CIA? So the Mexico City thing was just incidental?
Exactly. So you have to ask yourself, did somebody from the CIA get to Carter, though? And Celestis, we know he would be over this whole thing. Could be a performance. I mean,
but don't you think Estes did know who killed Henry Marshall?
I agree with that. He did, because he was the benefactor of this whole thing. I mean, it was obvious. So he did. So maybe he's just throwing out the name Mac Wallace because it was somebody else he's protecting.
I think the most likely scenario is that someone else killed Henry Marshall. I think it was probably someone affiliated with, maybe it was the same person who killed Sam Smithwick. By the way, the guy who had information about the 1948 Senate election and called Coke Stevenson, who lost that election, and he said, "Hey, I got some dirt. I got proof that you were cheated." And then Coke Stevenson says, "I'm on my way. I'll be there tomorrow." He gets to the prison and the guy's hanging from the sheets. So I mean, Mac Wallace, LBJ had other assassins available to him who were not direct.
Why would he use somebody so close that could be connected to him?
People say, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, like, this is where I stand in the whole LBJ thing. There's no doubt he was part of the cover up. I just never seen the evidence that he's a planner of this, because like you just mentioned, with all this stuff with the CIA, we know about Mexico City, Oswald's 201 file. Like, once you try to take out like Angleton and Phillips and Harvey and take them out of the story, it just falls apart for me. So yeah, I'm open to, did somebody tap Johnson on the back? And because he's surrounded by he knows a lot of the people that we think was involved in the assassination. So does somebody tap him on the back and say, hey, your time is coming in a month or whatever? I'm open to that, but I don't see him as a planner. I just don't see the evidence.
It's like, did Lyndon Johnson tell, pathologists working for the Bethesda Naval Center to do a pre-op, like, if you
Right.
believe there's a conspiracy, you have to believe in some sort of autopsy shenanigans of some form.
Absolutely.
You can debate and disagree about the nature of the shenanigans, but there
Right.
has to be some type. And so, given that, and the shenanigans must have happened at Bethesda or en route to Bethesda, if you want to go lifting, okay. But the point is, that's a lot for Mac Wallace to quarterback, given that Mac Wallace wasn't seen in any of this and he had an alibi. So Johnson's not off the hook. And by the way, and like we said, Johnson knows personally in his neighborhood all of these people.
All of them, he does.
So, like, you want to take your Allen Dulles, the ousted director of the CIA, who's aware of ZR rifle with the jaded Cuban exiles, you know what I mean? And like, and overlay LBJ into that kind of fits. Like, it makes sense. But Mac Wallace is not quarterbacking this thing. That's nuts to me. That's crazy. So just because of kind of what I've laid out. Now, I didn't talk about the Loy factor. I don't find it to be credible, but enough people do that I am going to cover it and recap and rebuttals. So we'll give that its due. I think, Howard Burris is what I wanted to say. Colonel Howard Burris. This is LBJ's direct military aide, and he also did a lot of work for CIA. So, and he's briefing LBJ on things that JFK is not privy to, like, just because the information is sanitized by the time it gets to JFK, but LBJ is getting the raw info.
Right.
So, we don't know. The answer is we don't know. Okay. But to the extent that you want to say, well, did he even have any ties to, how could he be connected to intelligence? His work in the Senate and the House, J. Edgar Hoover is one of his best friends. And then Burris was his ongoing connection to the generals and intelligence, his direct tie.
See, here's one of my problems, Matt, with LBJ being, one of the planners, is that there's no doubt about his corruption. I mean, you covered it perfectly. I mean, this guy's surrounded by corruption, and he was probably ordering these other murders. He probably was, the Henry Marshall murder probably would link back to him. There's, I'm not even disputing that. But the thing is, like, we know LBJ covered this up. We know him and Hoover. But the thing is, he goes to the lone gunman theory, and you have all this plan, and you have the CIA trying to tie Oswald to Coast to Cove, trying to tie him to the KGB. Angleton's doing that so to tie him to the Soviet Union. You got Phillips, trying to tie him to the Cubans. They're blaming this on the communists, and then here LBJ goes with the lone gunman theory. And Paul Blow's been on our show talking about how a lot of that stuff had to disappear. And it's in the Chokeholds book, where a lot of the evidence tying Oswald to the Cubans and Castro and everything has to disappear because LBJ goes with the lone gunman theory. So if he's a planner, boy, he really screwed things up going with the lone gunman theory,
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. It's LBJ, the whole Mexico City. I mean, for me, the thing that gives away the intent of LBJ and Hoover is the Mexico City phone call where half of the transcript's missing, or half the transcript's missing, and the call was deleted. 12 minutes of the call we know were provably deleted. Okay, not missing, deleted. That's been proven. So that's a big mistake. People say, Larry Hancock's book, someone would have talked. Well, they did. And people would have made mistakes. They wouldn't have been able to cover it up. They made a lot of mistakes. The biggest mistake they made was publishing the part of the transcript of that call that they published. And then they made it worse by deleting the rest of it, because it's like, hey, but the part they published, it's Hoover telling LBJ
that the voice don't match.
That the voice doesn't match and the face doesn't match. And it's an imposter down there in Mexico impersonating Oswald. Right. Is that what happens to crazy lone gunmen? Do they have imposters impersonate them while they talk to intelligence agencies? Is that what happens?
No, it's crazy.
Yeah, man. But that's what gives it away. And here's also how we know that it's a problem for Johnson. It never comes up again. Okay. So there's
Right.
that one call, and you don't hear a few days later, hey, remember when you said Oswald was impersonated? You got anything else on that? No, there's nothing. The only
No.
other thing in the record on it, aside from the memos that Hoover sent out to LBJ and to James Rowley that same day, is a few months later in the marginalia. Hoover loved to do this, to write little notes on the sides of letters and memos. He wrote, this reminds me of the CIA's double dealing and false story R.E. Oswald in Mexico City.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Yeah.
tells us what he thinks.
Right.
And so these guys knew that CIA was impersonating Oswald.
They knew it. And they didn't go and tell McCone or
Yes.
Katzenbach, who were in the previous conversation.
And they probably knew that the reason this was all happening, of course, and not probably, knew for sure, because he used this to get Warren and Richard Russell to be
Sure.
on the Warren Commission. That look, if we follow this,
sure.
it was it's perfect because it
Yeah.
gives everybody a reason to lie and be heroic. You're not
Yeah.
lying to cover up a murder of a beloved president. You're lying to
saving
stop a
millions
nuclear
in a
war
nuclear
because
war.
you're an adult. You're being an adult in the room.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that's kind of what gives it away. And the only counterpoint, because I'm real big on trying to find, like, okay, what the other side, what do you say to this? And what they say is they point to a HSCA document, and it's some like lieutenant colonel going, actually, the tape never existed. There was no tape. Everyone was mistaken about this. We weren't able to find any FBI agents who ever heard any of the tapes. Okay, did you not read Hoover's memo? He's got a memo where he lists all of it. Go look at it. You didn't try very hard, did you? So people say, oh, it's been debunked. It hasn't been. If it's been debunked, then explain why it never came up again, other than J. Edgar Hoover's marginalia, calling it a false story.
Yep.
So LBJ did not want to do a preemptive nuclear strike, which is what the psychopathic generals wanted.
Yeah.
And because he wanted to have a presidency, because he wanted to do his own psychopathic things on his own that you could do as president.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the deal, that he ramped up Vietnam, and he said, we're not going to blow up the whole earth. We'll just blow up this little patch of it.
Yeah.
And that was that. Because they got in. I covered this when I cover Hoover, the last Hoover episode, because we really talked about the Warren Commission. But they got in lockstep after the Katzenbach memo. There was a lot of talk about continuing to push this Mexico City, Cuba angle and the Soviet angle, but they shut that down in early December, and they never looked back.
Billy, you got something?
Just a couple of things, kind of general comments or questions, I guess, for you, Matt, about LBJ. What's your I don't know, I guess your the perception of LBJ kind of later in his life was, he was kind of I don't know, a hero, right? I mean, he passed all this civil rights legislation, and I remember my dad telling me the story about, he was at a Broadway play and LBJ came in and everybody stood up and gave him a standing ovation. He said it was a longer standing ovation than what the play got. And this is in New York City. Just kind of curious as to your feelings about him as a person and as a president.
Yeah, I think what I've learned from this is that he was definitely a narcissist, but he had the ability to make individuals think he was nice if he needed something from them. He would lay it on thick. I mean, just an unbelievable messenger. A deal maker, and just, if you look at the tone of the letters between him and Hoover, you can see them slowly. He's always kissing Hoover's ass, but Hoover starts to kiss his ass more and more as he ascends in power.
Yeah.
At first, Hoover's like, "Thank you, son," and then he's like, "Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to be in your presence, Your Honor." I mean, yeah, I think Johnson's a bad guy ultimately. I mean, look, on the civil rights, that's where you can kind of you can kind of tell. Okay, so he had this. First of all, let me just say, the political context is Southern Democrats back then were not in favor of civil rights.
Against it. Yeah, totally against it.
Right.
And then the liberal Democrats were in favor of it. So they really had a very split party. I mean, the Democrats at the time had very, very different factions for sure. And Johnson was certainly on the not civil rights faction. So, I believe it was O'Donnell, one of Kennedy's aides, when he found out Johnson was going to be on the ticket, he's like, how are you going to explain this to everyone who supported you? He's against everything that you're for.
Right.
And he reverses John L. Kennedy's policies after anyway. And Jimmy Eugenio, talks about how Bobby Kennedy really deserves most of the credit for getting that civil rights bill passed. He stayed on to do that. And there's even a conversation, Matt, where I forget the exact words, but Johnson's kind of paraphrasing, like, we'll let Bobby go and do all the work, and then if it succeeds, we'll take the credit. If it fails, we'll blame Bobby.
Well, see, Johnson wasn't Johnson, and I'll say something nice about him. He was really smart. Really smart.
He was a really smart politician, yeah.
And so he knew that after Kennedy was assassinated, in particular, he couldn't just take the ball and run with it and do whatever he wanted. His best bet to be reelected and sort of have a governing mandate was to say, I'm going to do everything Kennedy was going to do. And, you may recall that publicly, Kennedy, his rhetoric publicly was not dovish. It started to be more so, the American University speech, et cetera, but remember, even during the election, he was pretty hawkish, public facing. Okay.
You had to be. You had to be. Exactly. If you were perceived weak on communism, you're not getting elected.
But so on civil rights, Lyndon Johnson, see, the thing is, the dude was provably racist. Okay.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be, it's one thing to be like, oh, he didn't really care about it that much, but he just did it anyway. No. This guy was actively a bad, like, dark-hearted racist. So here's the best story is a lot. I should have a lot of anecdotes I talk about, but the best one is not the best one, but like the one that shows you all you need to know. He's the Senate Majority Leader, 1959. He's being driven in his whatever vehicle by his black chauffeur, okay, who's his regular chauffeur, someone that he would have a rapport with as a human.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And the chauffeur is black, and so Johnson asks him. Johnson starts the conversation. He asked the chauffeur. He goes, "Hey boy, have you ever wanted anyone to call you by your name instead of boy or the N-word?" I just say the N-word. That's how I handle it. I'm like, how am I gonna do this? And the guy goes, "Yeah, yes, sir. I would love for you to call me by my name." And then Johnson goes, "Well, you're an N-word and you'll always be an N-word, and you were born one and you're going to die one, and no one's ever going to call you your name. So you'll be just fine as long as you pretend that you're a goddamn piece of furniture and don't say anything."
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely free with the N-word. That was
But just to and he brought, that's how I know that he was a dark-hearted racist, because he brought it up. There's nobody else in the car. There's no audience playing for.
Right.
Like, it's not good, but that's the environment he grew up in. And
but that's not an excuse.
Not surprising.
Right.
But like he would catch snakes and put them in his trunk. So, and then go find a black gas station attendant to ask him to change his tire.
Wow. Bad. That's
not
bad.
Good.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what I think about Lyndon Johnson. I think, and then in his later years, he did tell some people that, they were running a Murder Inc. down in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And he kind of hinted at there were some shenanigans going on. So, but also in LBJ, you've got 3 big hitters who put him behind the assassination. 4 really. Okay. You have the Soviet Union, who they did a report, and their report says that it was Lyndon Johnson and right-wing interests in the United States. You have E. Howard Hunt, who I don't believe what he says on its face, but he did put Lyndon Johnson at the top.
Matt, I do think that David Talbot in his book, Devil's Chessboard really explains that pretty good, because it goes into those, how they tell these truths hidden between lies and stuff,
Yes,
where he leaves out Allen Dulles and he puts
correct.
Lyndon Johnson and everybody else. All these other figures are tied to Dulles, and Hunt leaves them out completely, and he puts Johnson in the top of the pecking
Yes.
order.
Yeah, totally. But yes, but nevertheless, he did have LBJ at number 2. So, and then we got Jackie. So we don't know, you know, the Manchester thing is the Manchester book is still under wraps until 2067, I think. Now the Kennedy family, Caroline Kennedy, could let it out sooner, but she's not on the team of truth, unfortunately. So she chooses not to, which is a bummer. It's her dad, I get it, but I don't know. It's not great. So okay, supposedly Manchester in that book, people who are familiar with it say the reason that it's classified until 2067 is because Jackie says that she thinks LBJ is behind it. And then finally, Jack Ruby. There's the recording of Ruby when he's walking down the hall in the jail, and the reporters ask him, you know, Jack, is there anything you want the world to know? And he goes, well, if Adlai Stevenson had been vice president, this wouldn't have happened.
He also says that, you know, another form of government is taken over, and that whole thing
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To summarize though, Matt, like, to me, I just don't see all the evidence that LBJ is a planner, because you really hit on something where you talked about all that CIA stuff. You can't get rid of all that stuff. You can't get rid of the Mexico City. And it just, to me, that the way that LBJ went with the lone gunman theory, to me, shows me that he wasn't a planner. Now, he might have knew something was coming, because again, he, like you said, he's neighbors with everybody that's involved. So he's involved with everybody that we think was behind this.
The big foreknowledge angle for me, that I'm trying to dig deeper on, is this one little anecdote. Okay. Because all day, so is it possible that he had foreknowledge? A zillion percent possible all day long. That definitely.
Sure.
But did he do anything to show that he had foreknowledge? Okay. And the closest thing I can see to that is this argument that he supposedly had with Kennedy the morning of the assassination, where he's trying to get Connolly, his lifelong best friend, okay, and Yarbrough, his political enemy, to switch seats, and that he really pushed for it. And if the sourcing on that is tight enough, that's to me, that's red-handed. You're literally going, I don't want my friend to die.
Yeah.
But if it's like a guy told a guy, like, I have to get down to the weeds of the sourcing of that whole anecdote. But if that anecdote has legit sourcing, that's enough for me, I think.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
it's
definitely
there's no doubt
involved,
about
definitely covered it
corruption,
up. Sorry.
you know, and there's just no doubt about his corruption, and that he was involved in murders, or at least murders that, you know, were conducted because, you know, he was the benefactor of those. I mean, he's just got this complete corruption all around him his whole career. And like you said, he's a blatant racist, and it's amazing that he gets credit for civil rights. It's pathetic.
Really is.
Yeah.
Really
It
is.
really is amazing that he gets credit for civil rights. He should get no credit whatsoever. All the credit should go to JFK and Bobby Kennedy.
I agree, 100%.
Yep.
100%. Well, we did go over a little bit, but I think we did a good job, Matt, of covering, you know, 7 episodes there in kind of a little bit over an hour. I think you did a real good job, buddy.
Well, good. Appreciate it. Yeah, sorry, I probably had a lot of uhs and mumbling. I'm better at staying on a script, but thanks for having me on.
Might
Yeah.
be confusing to some people. We dropped a lot of names, but I think, you know, the main point is, you know, Johnson was involved in a lot of this stuff, and if he, you know, we could say that he wasn't a planner, but I think he knew, at least after the fact, I think he knew who did it. Let's put it that way. And this is why he covered it up. I think it didn't take him long to understand, especially with the stuff with him and Hoover, the conversation. It didn't take him long to understand who was behind this and that it was a coup. So whether he got, you know, the tip before that it was coming or afterwards, he knew, and that's the end of his life. He's talking about the Caribbean and the Murder Incorporated and how others were behind or others were involved. And so he definitely knew.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate it. It's always good talking to you guys.
Yeah,
All
great
right.
talking to you. And I'm sure most of the people watching this episode or listening are here because of your podcast, Solving JFK. But if you haven't heard of it, go check it out. Solving JFK, great podcast that Matt does. Fantastic. And Matt, we thank you for coming on. Really do.
Thank you,
Thanks,
buddy.
guys. I appreciate it. You're doing
right.
good work out there. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
That's Enough Out of You podcast is executive produced and written by Bill Rader and Sean Kane and edited by Bill Rader. The That's Enough Out of You podcast and logo are exclusive property of Bags of Chicken, LLC. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or accounts of this podcast without the express written consent of Bags of Chicken, LLC is prohibited. So don't even try it.